children, how are you? I hope you all are doing well. So children, remember we have been doing comprehension right from our first class? Yes. So comprehension is nothing but a passage that you get or a poem that you get, and based on that you get some questions and you have to answer them. Alright. So let's look at certain passages and poems of comprehension in this chapter. Alright. So hello kids. Comprehension is nothing but an ability to understand something. जब हमें एक पैसेज मिलता है तो उसको हम किस तरह से समझते हैं, that is the ability, okay, the ability to understand that passage. और जब हम उसके answers देते हैं, that proves that to what extent have we followed what was written in the passage or in the poem. Clear? Comprehension exercises usually include unseen passages or poems. So these are all new passages, all new poems that you've not read earlier. Okay? These exercises are intended to test and improve your ability to comprehend. Okay? Now, the following points should be kept in mind while attempting comprehension passages. First, you have to read the passage thoroughly and carefully to know what it is about. So, जब भी आप पैसेज आपको मिलता है, पूरा पैसेज अच्छे से पढ़ लेना. Okay? So that you know what it is talking about. आप थोड़ा थोड़ा पढ़ोगे तो आपको उसका मीनिंग नहीं समझेगा. You have to read it thoroughly. Okay? Read the passage again to know its detail. Then study the questions and turn to the relevant part of the passage again as you read the questions. So, जैसे जैसे हम questions पढ़ेंगे वैसे वैसे we will refer back to the passage and answer it. And most of the time आप देखोगे कि जो answers आप लिखते हो ना, वो passage में जैसे लिखे गए वैसे ही लिखने होते. Okay? When you find the answers, begin to write them down. Okay? And don't copy from the passage. Rather, write in your own language. Okay? So, when you are writing them, if need be, you can use your own words also, and sometimes it says to mention it as it is from the passage. So, depending on the question, always write the answer. You've already done the direct and indirect speech, okay, so you know how to write the passages, okay, in your own words. Or you know how to write the answers now in your own words. Next is, do not add any extra information to your answers. So, answers जो भी आप लिखोगे, it has to be based only on whatever the content of the passages. Clear? You don't have to add more things in your own words. Alright, now, read the following story about Ada Blackjack, often referred to as the female Robinson Crusoe, and answer the questions that follow. Ada Blackjack. Merely 23 years old, Ada Blackjack was barely 5 feet tall, unskilled, timid, and completely ignorant of the world outside Nome, Alaska. She was mortally afraid of guns and polar bears. She knew nothing about hunting, trapping, living off the land, or even building an igloo. When she signed on as seamstress with the 1921 Wrangel Island expedition, the men considered her a hindrance and a nuisance. They scoffed at her, sure that she would never survive the harsh conditions. तो जैसे आपको पता है, Alaska is a cold region, okay, and there's continuous snowfall there. It's full of ice everywhere. So this is about Ada Blackjack, who was just 23-year-old और छोटी सी थी, timid सी थी, और उसको मिलता है job, okay, as a seamstress. Okay, जो स्टिच करती है उसका जॉब मिला था उसको इन 1921 रैंगल आइलैंड एक्सपीडिशन, और जहाँ पे उसके साथ में सारे मेन थे, एंड मोस्ट ऑफ द मेन दे थॉट कि ये इस हार्श कंडीशन में सर्वाइव कर ही नहीं पाएगी. ओके, देयर वर 5 of them, 4 men and a woman. They had volunteered to live on the icy Wrangel Island to the far north of Siberia. Their goal was to prove that this inhospitable land was in fact habitable. This was the brainchild of Arctic explorer William Stephenson, and it was to go hopelessly, disastrously wrong. Among the 5 explorers was Ada, whose husband had died, leaving behind a child with chronic tuberculosis. Ada decided to join the expedition at a good salary for just 1 year. She was employed as the team's seamstress, मतलब tailor थी वो कपड़े सीने के लिए and all that thing. She was employed as that. और उसको अच्छी salary मिलती थी and she was traveling. She was on that expedition with 4 men. Okay, she was the only woman and she needed that job because her husband had died और उसके पास एक छोटा बच्चा था जिसको TB हुआ था, tuberculosis हुआ था. Okay, the rest of the team, they were hardened adventurers. 3 Americans named Lone Knight Milton Gall and Fred Maurer and a Canadian called Alan Crawford. On 16 September 1921, the team was left on the barren Wrangel Island far north of Siberia. Okay, Stephenson was so convinced that the island was teeming with wildlife that he left them with enough food for just 6 months. He promised to send a supply ship the following summer. So, this was like an adventure expedition by these people. They wanted to know about the place and all. That's why they had started this mission. Okay. Now, the mission began well. They built a large snow house and then they began to hunt. So, they were there especially to hunt. Okay. They managed to kill 10 polar bears, 30 seals and many geese and ducks. They were confident that they could survive until the arrival of the supply ship. तो उनको लग रहा था कि although it is cold or whatever the circumstances may be, wherever they were, तो उनको गारंटी थी कि जब तक सप्लाई शिप आएगी तब तक उनके पास जो सामान है उससे उनका काम चल जाएगा. But the promised vessel never arrived and the 5 faced a long cold autumn with dwindling supplies. But जो शिप आने वाली थी वो आई ही नहीं. Okay, and now they were left with only less supply. Okay, क्योंकि most of the things were used. Okay, now they soon ran short of tea and coffee, flour, beans and sugar. As autumn developed into a ferocious Arctic winter, the wild game disappeared and the 5 were left extremely hungry. Worse still, Lone Knight developed a serious illness. So this was like, you're left in the midst of nowhere. आसपास जहाँ देखो वहाँ पे सब जगह पे it is only snow. And once the autumn goes off, okay, then it is like peak winters in these Siberian or polar regions. Okay, on 28 January 1923, Crawford, Gale and Maurer decided to traverse the icy Chukchi Sea to reach the Siberian mainland and seek help. The 3 men were never seen again. They probably froze to death. Lone Knight was by now so afflicted with scurvy that he could scarcely move. He was nursed by Ada until April, when he also died. Ada was now utterly alone in the ice-bound wilderness. Now, जो help लेने गए थे, okay, to the main Siberian mainland, वो भी वापस नहीं आए. तो शायद से they must have frozen to death because they were hungry also and with so much ice and so much snow, they might have frozen. अब इसके साथ जो लोम नाइट था उसको scurvy हो गया था और उसकी वजह से he also died after some time and now Ada was left all alone. She soon learned to kill seal, foxes and ducks. She then made stews out of the meat. She managed to keep a fire going. But as another summer slipped by, she grew weaker and weaker. She prepared for her own lingering death, okay? But just when she had given up hope of ever being rescued, she sighted a vessel. On 23rd August 1923, the Donaldson arrived at Wrangel Island. जो vessel आने वाली थी, वो finally August 23rd को वहाँ पे पहुँच गई. The crew was expecting to find the 5 in good health. Instead, they stumbled upon only a half-starved Ada Blackjack. When her story reached the outside world, the newspaper labeled her the female Robinson Crusoe. Her survival, they said, was a miracle. But she was by now a celebrity heralded in books and journals. Ada never made it to the North Pole, but she did return to the Arctic and eventually made it her home. Brave, this unassuming young woman would say whenever people would praise her courage. I don't know about that, but I would never give up hope while I'm still alive. So this was a lady. जो गई तो थी 5 जन एज अ ग्रुप ऑफ 5, बट रह गई थी alone. Okay, the rest of them, she doesn't know whether they survived. 3 of them, she doesn't know whether they survived or no. The 4th person died in front of her. Now she was left out with nothing. और फिर उसने सीख लिया हाउ टू डू हंटिंग और खुद ही खाना बनाती थी. somehow she could lit up a fire and she kept on going. ओके तो उसने एक चीज़ तो वहाँ पे उसने सीख ही ली थी कि जब तक मैं जिंदा हूँ तब तक मैं कभी भी आई विल नेवर गिव अप होप. So that's the lesson, children, for us also, that we should never give up hope and keep on trying hard. Okay, so we have to keep trying, and one day we will definitely succeed. So now what you have to do, as this was a comprehension passage, you will get a lot of questions that you need to answer. So be smart and take the correct option to answer each of the following questions. This is all related to the passage. Then you have to answer the following questions. So पहले तो आपके options है, दूसरे हैं आपके question answers. Then find words from the passage which have the same meaning as the following. Okay. Now you have to find the synonyms here. Then imagine Ada Blackjack has been invited to your school as the chief guest. You have to deliver the welcome speech. Write the speech in about 80 words. तो आपको यहाँ पे help भी दी है and now based on that you have to write a speech. Next. Now let's look at the next one, which is the poem. Read the following poem and answer the questions that follow. My brother Bert. Pets are the hobby of my brother Bert. He used to go to school with a mouse in his shirt. His hobby it grew, as some hobbies will, and grew and grew and grew until, oh, don't breathe a word, pretend you haven't heard. A simply appalling thing has occurred. The very thought makes me iller and iller. Bert's brought home a gigantic gorilla. So, Bert जो है, he is so fond of animals that finally, okay, उसकी जो छोटी सी hobby थी, okay, जो pets की, it grew until he brought a gigantic gorilla at home. Okay, if you think that's really not such a scare, what if it quarrels with his grizzly bear? You still think you could keep your head? What if the lion from under the bed and the 4 ostriches that deposit their football eggs in his bedroom closet and the aardvark out of his bottom drawer all danced out and joined in the row? So यहाँ पे आप देखोगे मतलब he is so fond of animals that from pet animals it has changed to wild animals also. Okay, what if the pangolins were to caper out of their nests behind the wallpaper with the 50 sorts of bats that hang on his hat stand like old hats, and out of a shoebox the excitable platypus along with ocelot or jungle catipus, the wombat, the dingo, the gecko, the grampus, how they would shake the house with their rumpus. Not to forget the bandicoot. Bandicoot मतलब बड़ा सा जो चूहा होता है उसको बोलते हैं bandicoot, okay? Who would certainly peer from his battered old boot. Why, it could be a dreadful day. And what, oh what, would the neighbors say? This poem is written by Ted Hughes. It is simply showing, okay, the love for pets and the love for animals that this poet's brother Bert has. Alright, so now quickly start answering these questions. Okay, first is you have to take the correct option to answer each of the following questions. Alright, then you have to answer the questions which are like question answers. Then you have to find the words which are the synonyms. Okay, and then when the poet says jungle catipus, he actually means the jungle pussy cat. All the other animals are real, though we have not heard of many of them. Find out more about each of the animals. So now you have to find out about each of the animals that are mentioned here. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Read this passage about Swami Vivekanand carefully and answer the questions that follow. Swami Vivekanand, the great monk Swami Vivekanand. These words have become the golden letters when written in the book of world history. He was born on January 12, 1863 as the son of Vishwanath Datta and Bhuvaneshwari Devi. In his childhood, he was called as Naren. He was very intelligent and had a wonderful memory. As a student, he exhibited these qualities by passing 3 years studies in 1 year. So, Swami Vivekanand ji jo the, he was very intelligent, okay, and he was born to Vishwanath Datta and Bhuvaneshwari Devi on January 12th, 1863. Okay, बचपन में उनका नाम था नरेन. Okay, वो इतना इंटेलिजेंट था, उसकी मेमोरी इतनी अच्छी थी कि उसने 3 साल की पढ़ाई एक ही साल में ख़त्म कर दी थी. So now this talent of his made it possible for him to digest the volumes of books in a number of hours. So सोचो, मतलब इतना इंटेलिजेंट था कि वो बुक्स के बुक्स बहुत कम समय में रीड कर पाता था. As a college student, he probed deep into science, philosophy, and developed a stern scientific attitude. But all this study did not help him to find out a perfect answer to the existence of God. So how much ever he tried to seek the knowledge, okay, he was still wondering, okay, and trying to find out the perfect answer to the existence of God. Okay. Later, he turned to Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans and sought clarification about God. So now he seeked the path of spirituality. And उन्होंने approach किया Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans को. Okay. Now he answered, I see him as I see you, only in an infinitely intenser scene. Naren was fascinated, and this fascination never ended. Naren's spiritual training lasted for 5 years. He insisted on his guru to open the door to leading to the absolute. At this, the guru remarked, Shame on you. I thought you were to be the great banyan tree giving shelter to thousands of tired souls. Leave the little things aside, my child, go and seek the truth yourself. Okay, so ये नरेन जो था, he was even after 5 years of spiritual training, okay, still he insisted that his guru, okay, should give him the knowledge about the Almighty, the Absolute, okay. तब जो उसके गुरु थे उनको गुस्सा आया और उन्होंने कहा कि that you have to seek it by yourself, okay, you have to go and find the answers to your questions, okay. So now Naren did not let his guru down. After the Mahasamadhi of Sri Paramhans in 1886, a new period commenced in his life. He widely travelled India from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and gathered experiences. So that means he went to each and every part of India. Okay, it was during this time that he was named as Vivekanand by the Maharaja of Khetri. Meanwhile, his disciples made attempts to send him to the meetings of religions to be held at Chicago, which is in America, in 1893. When he started on his expedition, he felt that he was no longer an individual but a concrete India. So that's when he thought that he is going to be India. He's going to represent India. Okay, so he represented Hinduism and dazzled the whole world with his lectures. This happened when he went to Chicago, okay, for the meeting of religions. He impressed the Western countries with his practical Vedantic philosophy. तो उसने बहुत सी चीज़ें, उन्होंने स्पिरिचुअल चीज़ें बहुत सी सीखी थी, जिसकी वजह से he was able to impress the Westerners about the Vedantic philosophy and about Hinduism as well. So his success gave Indians a national pride. He removed the very concept of weakness. According to him, Vedanta requires no sin. It only recognizes error, and the greatest error, says the Vedanta, is to say that you are weak. He emphasized to serve the poor, whom he used to call as Daridra Narayan. Okay? The youngsters considered him as their youth icon. His popularity is a proof that he reigns over the hearts and souls of millions of people. His birthday is celebrated as National Youth Day. So if you go down south, you will see that there is a statue of Swami Vivekanand, okay, and people over there, they really worship him. He was a very intelligent person. He wanted to seek as much knowledge as possible. At the same time, okay, in spite of having so much knowledge, still he seeked the path of spirituality. And he actually told the world about what culture, okay, what spiritual knowledge India has, and he spread it to the entire world and made India pride. Okay, India was proud about his achievement, and that's why he became the youth icon. So many youngsters wanted to follow the path of Swami Vivekananda. All right, now children, quickly start answering the questions. Okay, firstly, you have to complete the sentences given below. Then, answer the given questions briefly. Match the words with their right meanings. Now, you have the words, you have to match them, find the synonyms. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Read the following story and answer the questions that follow. Lizzie, the lion cub. Lizzie, the lion cub, had always wanted a mane. Okay, mane मतलब वो जो बाल होते हैं ना यहाँ पे गर्दन वगैरह पे वो, okay? But you can't have a mane, said her mother. You are a girl. Only boys have manes. So, Lizzie was a girl. Okay, तो उसकी मम्मी कहती कि आपको तो मेन नहीं आ सकती, आप तो लड़की हो. Okay, only boys जो होते हैं, okay, उनकी मेन होती है. Lizzie thought this was very unfair. Then she had an idea. She would go and see Osmond, the wise old ostrich. All my brothers have nice long manes, she complained to Osmond, and my head is as bald as an egg. Osmond looked for a long time at Lizzie's head. Then he gave her a bottle of hair tonic and told her to rub it on her head 3 times a day. So ये जाती है Osmond के पास, who is an wise old ostrich. तो वो उसको जब वो कंप्लेन करती कि मेरे भाइयों के पास मेन है, I don't have, look at me, I'm bald. So this wise old Osmond gives her a oil, okay, a hair tonic and tells her to apply it thrice a day. But it didn't work. Isn't it making you bolder? Said her brothers. They laughed at her as they combed their manes. Lizzie was angry. I want my money back, she told Osmond. That hair tonic you gave me didn't work. Osmond thought hard. All right, he said at last, I have another idea. And so, Lizzie returned home with her head full of ostrich feathers. She felt very proud of herself. Now she had a mane. At least something like a mane. Okay, you look funny, laughed her brothers. They followed her around the den trying to grab at the feathers. So, फिर वो जो आइडिया देता है ऑस्ट्रिच, वो सेकेंड आइडिया में वो क्या करता है, उसके गर्दन के आसपास, हेड के आसपास फेदर्स लगा देता है ऑस्ट्रिच के. Okay, now when she goes home, all her brothers start making fun of her. Okay, leave her alone, said their mother and chased them outside. Lizzie loved to wear the feathers. She spent a lot of time looking at her reflection in a pool. It was not a real mane, but it was better than having no mane. So now Lizzie loved that look, but sometimes her mane made her angry. The feather mane made her head hotter in summer. It got into her eyes and she couldn't see properly. It also took a lot of time to brush and comb and get the knots out. So परेशान तो हो ही गई थी because obviously feathers keep them warm. So उसको गर्मी लग रही थी उसकी वजह से. Okay, and it was difficult to comb the feathers also. So one day, Lizzie and her brothers were playing on the river bank. It had been raining and they got very muddy. It will take so long to get the dirt out of our manes, said her brothers. They jumped into the river for a bath. Lizzie's feather mane was very, very dirty, but she could not jump into the river to clean it. The water would spoil it even more. Lizzie thought for a moment. She pulled off her feather mane and threw it away. Then she quickly ran home before her brothers. Lizzie felt freer and lighter without the mane. She could see better too. She was tired of combing her mane anyway. How lovely you look, said her mother, and Lizzie, looking at her reflection, very happily agreed. So, अब जब बारिश हो रही थी और सब जगह पे मड हो गया था, okay, these brothers, they wanted to clean themselves, so they thought of jumping into the river. But Lizzie तो नहीं jump कर पा रही थी because although her feathers were dirty, but she still couldn't jump into the river because वो मेन निकल जाता था और वो और गंदा हो जाता था. तो इसके लिए जब वो देखती है कि उसके भाई कैसे स्ट्रगल करे to keep the mane clean, she is very happy and she removes her mane and she throws them away and she frees herself, and then when she looks at herself, she feels more relaxed and more happy. Now, Isn't this a nice story? Yeah. Now be smart and answer these questions briefly. Okay. Then you have to write who said it. Okay. Why it was said and when it was said. Okay. And then match the animals or birds in column A with their young ones in column B. Okay. And find out from the story one word for each of the following. Then write comparative and superlative degrees of the following adjectives. ये तो हमने किए हैं in degrees of comparison. So I hope that you can answer these questions quickly. Alright. So children, likewise, you can practice more comprehension passages and more poems at home and see then that your skill, the reading skills will improve. At the same time, your analyzing skills will also improve. Alright. So get going, children.